This is excellent, and it's really a pleasure to be here. As we know, we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Bankinter Foundation, and through those years, the foundation has brought together the best and the brightest people, the most creative thought leaders who are trying to solve some of the biggest problems that are challenging our world today. And what they're really doing is bringing together what we would consider a world-class conversation. And it's a real privilege for me to be part of this, and also to really be part of and see what's happening in Spain and seeing this ecosystem that's being developed around entrepreneurship. And I think the foundation is a very important part of that. As an entrepreneur and investor, I spend all of my time really talking to other entrepreneurs, talking to CEOs, talking to technologists, scientists, researchers, and other investors to really figure out what are they working on, what are they seeing, what are the trends in various marketplaces, whether it be a scientific company like Rhapsody Biologics based in Singapore, or Viz Research, which is a clinical trials analytics company based in Brazil, or my company Theragenetics, which was acquired, that was based in the UK. They're all doing something interesting in a different part of the world. And all of them are collaborating and thinking in ways that often had not been done before and not done very well. So I feel great when I'm around those kind of people and really looking at new trends and new models and new ideas. And there's the old expression, as long as you're thinking, you might as well be thinking big. So as I look at what are the big trends that are happening in our marketplace and thinking about how entrepreneurship is shifting, I wanted to just touch upon three of those in the short time we have today. Three primary topics that I hear in the entrepreneurial ecosystems that I travel are really around new ways that companies are being formed, the way that companies are being developed and created, the new ways that that's happening. Number two is really the trends and the new ways that technology is both being developed in different parts of the world in different ways, but also how existing technology is being repurposed and used in ways to enhance lifestyle and create new companies. And then the third area I'm going to touch upon are the trends in finance. The topic everybody wants to talk about when you talk about entrepreneurship is how do you get these companies funded. So I won't bore you with a long discussion around venture capital and funding terms. We're going to talk about the new ways that these companies are both raising capital to get off the ground, but also raising capital to expand into new markets. So first, company formation has really changed. I think about when I was in my 20s and started the first company that I developed, I think we had like a 2-page business plan. And a group of guys got together and created an organization that basically partnered with a distributor of products, and we found customers, and we basically bridged that gap. It was as simple as you can get. Idea, motivated entrepreneurs, a supplier, distributor, manufacturer that was willing to give us credit, and customers that were willing to buy. It was very, very basic. Well, the world has changed dramatically since the 80s. And what we're seeing now is this incredible convergence where individuals and organizations that are from disconnected disciplines, engineers, scientists, technologists, are coming together in both informal and formal ways to solve big problems. As an example, at MIT, one of our many institutes, one of our newest institute, is the MIT Koch Institute for Cancer Research. And the Koch Institute is deliberately called an integrated institute. As opposed to a traditional university institute where it's a group of biologists in the biology department or a group of chemists in chemistry or the software guys or the media guys, this is a single institution funded by David Koch that brought together the leading research scientists in the fields of biology, chemistry, polymer science, engineering, software, analytics, statistics, bioinformatics, brought them all together in one facility and has created an environment where these individuals can collaborate, communicate, patent, invent, and explore together in ways that has never been done before. That forced creativity creates a level of discussion and invention that we have never seen. We're seeing engineers who know polymer science better than any group in the world, sitting down with cancer researchers, figuring out how do we take that molecule that will potentially cure an individual of cancer and take this polymer and combine them and deliver that drug directly into the tumor. We're seeing individuals in the MIT Media Lab that are working on state-of-the-art software technologies and visual technologies that are now being used for brain imaging and scanning, technologies that are being used for gaming and also for education. That convergence is the way of the future, and that is the way new companies today are being started. You're seeing it also happen in academic and commercial partnerships that at one point would never exist. Years ago, I remember when I was in university, if the academicians that I worked with or were studying under partnered with industry, it was considered selling out. It was viewed as they're just after the money, they're no longer pure scientists or researchers. Well, now that has changed and shifted in such a positive way, where academics are working with industry. We're seeing researchers working with organizations like Intel, Microsoft, Genzyme, Amgen, Johnson & Johnson to solve big problems. And because of that, the world is better for it. We're also seeing academic universities that once never spoke to each other and often viewed each other as competitors working together. Harvard and MIT, one of the great competitor rivalries that happens in Cambridge or in the Boston area, now have created a series of courses together. One of the most successful degree programs they have is the Harvard MIT HST program, which is around health science and technology. You're seeing Harvard and MIT working together to solve big problems, and that had not been done before, and out of that creates new innovation and new ways to create companies. The second area I want to touch upon is the trends that we're seeing around the development of technology as well as the use of technology. And this is one of the most fun areas because all of us are technologists at some level. We all have our iPhones and iPads and we use the computer. But what we're seeing right now are trends that are allowing us to operate in a way that we're not just users of technology, we're actually contributors to the value of that technology. A great trend or a great example of that is in the area of what's called collaborative consumption. Collaborative consumption is just simply the concept that us as a group of individuals communicating through multiple devices can actually add value to each other's lives in different ways. I'll give you two examples. There's an organization that's called Airbnb. How many people have heard of that? Airbnb. Yeah. Airbnb is a fascinating organization that has basically taken the opportunity to use the internet as a way to leverage available housing, available rental place. So if you were looking for an apartment to stay in France for the weekend, or you wanted to come to Boston and spend part of the summer there, you could get onto this website, and through that communication platform, you can actually design your vacation in a much more efficient way and have access to real estate, to a place to stay that you would never have had before. No travel agent is going to get you there. That's collaborative communication and collaborative consumption. Another great example in the United States was started a company called Zipcar. And Zipcar has now taken off and become just a fantastic company with a wonderful story. And Zipcar has also created a series of other organizations very similar to it. Zipcar allows you as an individual, very often living in the city, who doesn't want to own a car, park a car, pay for all the parking tickets, the insurance, and all the other challenges, but you need a car. Maybe to go grocery shopping or go to take your kids to sports on the weekends, maybe to go away for the afternoon. Zipcar created a mechanism, a way that I can become a member of Zipcar online. With my iPad, I could identify where a vehicle is, go to that designated lot, and with a code, I can get into the car and drive away. It's magnificent. Because of GPS technologies, internet technologies, all of these things combined, it becomes a secure, safe, reliable way for individuals, especially those living in cities, to get around in a vehicle without having to go to the rental shop at the airport. So that's one of the big trends is collaborative consumption. And it's really taking on a new way of impacting all of our lives. BMW, as an example, is actually investing in garage sharing programs. I mean, that is out of the box thinking. You think about automobile dealers or automobile manufacturers as very old school. All of their technology is in their vehicle, but the way they operate is usually very, very dated, very old in the way they operate. BMW is going to the forefront and saying, wait a minute, we have consumers that have new demands, and they're all able to connect through their iPads and their iPhones. Let's figure out a way to do this. And there's many other examples. Open source is certainly the other big trend, and we could have an entire conference about this. And open source is an area where I think all of us have a general understanding. Open source often involves collaboration and communication. But what we're seeing is that open source is also becoming a secure, reliable way to promote new technologies and further develop them. Any one of us using a phone that happens to have applications on it knows that those applications were probably not made by the manufacturer of that phone. As I use my iPad, I'm able to use a series of applications that were simply approved by Apple to be downloaded from the App Store. It's created this e-commerce machine that individual entrepreneurs are able to start companies, develop applications, and actually have a magnificent distribution channel that they could never have 10 years ago if they were starting their own little software company. Instantly, they're able to access the world that is working on that same platform, in that case, called Apple's iTunes. So this is the collaborative world and the open world that we're all seeing. The third topic I wanted to touch upon today before closing is on finance and funding. And as I promised, I wouldn't go into a long discussion around venture capital and hedge funds and how they're funding the world or not, or the trends in that area. What we are seeing is that that is not only here to stay, but changing in very dynamic ways. Just as I was explaining that there's ways that we're using technology to better live our lives, develop new companies, and distribute new technologies to potential customers, we're also seeing crowdfunding as a trend that has taken off over the past couple of years. Crowdfunding has really become a unique way for individuals, whether they're starting a new company or they're looking to raise capital for a good cause, can actually reach out to individual, not corporations, but individuals and raise capital. There are platforms being created. They estimate that in 2013, this year, the total dollars raised through crowdfunding will be approximately $500 billion worldwide. And this includes organizations. Crowdfunding.com is one of those. Kickstarter is another one that is very popular. As a matter of fact, there's even another organization called Indiegogo that is crowdfunding for musicians that allows them to promote their music and continue to develop more art. So crowdfunding is touching our lives in ways that we really had never thought of. And finally, under the funding sort of umbrella is some really unique trends around corporate incubators and corporate funding. We're seeing organizations, big, powerful companies, whether it be Intel or Microsoft, Google, Dell, HP, each of them taking the opportunity to create venture arms within their companies that allows them to not only identify technologies that they may never have seen before, but also to be part of that ecosystem, part of that dialogue that is so important to these companies. Google Ventures is one of the most active. They have offices throughout the United States. They have in New York, Boston. They're on the West Coast. They're actively going out there and having communications with entrepreneurs, talking to them about what are they working on and how can we help support your efforts. So you're seeing this corporate funding initiatives really exploding in every industry. In the pharmaceutical and biotech space, you could name almost every one of the majors out there: Novartis, J&J, Amgen, Eli Lilly. They all have a venture arm. They have a group of individuals inside that are actively engaged in looking for new intellectual property, new technologies, and new companies to partner with. In the venture capital space, I can't completely leave that alone. The one trend I'm seeing, and especially in the United States, is an interesting trend towards venture capitalists thinking small. So typically what we saw in the United States was this trend where venture firms, especially successful venture firms, just get bigger. So they raise their first fund of $100 or $200 million, and they do pretty well with that. Maybe no returns, but some solid investments. They raise their second fund, maybe of an equal size or larger. They then raise their third fund, and before you know it, they're sitting on $500 million or $1 billion under management. The problem with having that amount of money under management is you can't make $500,000 investments. you would have to sit on a lot of boards and manage a lot of companies and read a lot of business plans if you're making those size investments. So what happened was these venture firms that used to be early stage venture firms putting in $500,000 or $2 million into a company were now putting $5 or $10 million into much later stage companies. And what they realized was that they were no longer contributing to that ecosystem of entrepreneurship. They were basically growth capital. What we've seen is this trend where venture guys are essentially creating angel funds within their venture fund. Atlas Venture Capital Partners, one of the most successful venture firms in the United States, has taken their most recent fund in the hundreds of millions of dollars. They've taken a piece of that fund, 20 or 30 million of it, a small amount. They've put that aside, and they are allowed to make as many investments as they like, up to $1 million. If they find an interesting entrepreneur, an interesting technology, they can say, here's 50,000, let's get to proof of concept. Here's $250,000. And by the way, we have empty office space down the hall. Let's explore this together for 6 months. And what's amazing is they do this with no strings attached. They don't say we demand a certain price on the next financing. We demand that we're your lead investor. They basically say, let's pick a valuation. Let's invest at this point. Or maybe what we'll do is create it as a convertible note, just a note that'll convert into the next financing if there is one. What they're investing in is people. They're taking that risk to say, let's put a small amount of money into these 2 or 3 people, and let's see if what they're doing works. And it's a brand new way of thinking. So I'm going to close with just some final thoughts. The topic I had the privilege of talking about today was entrepreneurship, and it's certainly, as Chris said, something that runs through my blood. It's something I love, and I've had the privilege of working internationally and with big and small companies, but at the end of the day, the entrepreneurs are the ones that really are out there pushing the boundaries, even if those entrepreneurs are inside of big companies. I think about how children often just have this incredible imagination. You know, I have 2 kids, one's 13 and one's 10, and their imagination is boundless. They can do anything, dream of anything, and anything is possible. But somehow, as we get older, we get smarter, more cautious, and we stop dreaming so big and creative. What you'll find is the type of people that you want around you to build the next group of companies that'll be successful in Spain, the type of people that will be the future of this great country are the people that remain as children, the ones that can imagine the future. They can imagine a new way to get to space, and they become the next Elon Musk or Richard Branson. They think of ways to change the world, and nobody tells them that they can't. And if someone does, they ignore them. Spain has a tremendous opportunity right now. The foundation has been built. The ecosystem is growing, and the Bankinter Foundation is a part of that. And I think that each of these revolutions that we see in different countries or in different parts of different countries, when you think about Boston or Silicon Valley, at one point there was nothing there. But those revolutions, they start with a single person. They then become a group of people, a thunder, a change, and then ultimately what you see is a shift in the way people think and the way they operate. And I think as I look around this room and I had the privilege of looking at the list of attendees, I can see that the power to change Spain, the power to revolutionize the way Spain is viewed and operates in the global economy, the power to create an entrepreneurial environment is in this room. Some of the most influential people in this country sit here today. And the fact that you're here today is representative of your commitment and the fact that you really care. And I thank you all for listening to me, and thank you for the time today.